The ancient city of Babylon lay sprawled beneath a night sky heavy with secrets. Flickers of light cast from torches sputtered in the warm wind, illuminating narrow alleys and towering ziggurats. Pazuzu, a young scribe with ambitions of priesthood, navigated the dark streets, clutching a satchel of clay tablets. These held fragments of forbidden knowledge, lines and symbols whispered in shadows and entrusted only to those who walked in the way of the priesthood, the guardians of Babylon's mysteries. Pazuzu's footsteps quickened as he approached the temple. Shadows seemed to stretch toward him, drawn by the faint murmur of dread that had crept into the city in recent months. It was said Pazuzu, the demon of the west wind, brought pestilence and fear on the air. Though few dared speak his name, whispers of him lingered like a sickness, carried on the lips of the fearful and filling the minds of even the boldest with unease. As Pazuzu entered the temple courtyard, he was met by the sight of his mentor, the high priest Gula, deep in prayer. The priesthood of Babylon held closely guarded knowledge, deciphering omens and protecting the city from unseen threats. Tonight, however, their prayers seemed desperate. Pazuzu sensed the mounting tension, the silent fear that gnawed at these men who were otherwise pillars of strength and wisdom. Gula rose from his knees, his gaze shadowed. "Pazuzu," he spoke, his voice soft yet commanding. "Tonight we invoke the sacred rites to ward off a terror that stirs in the winds." Pazuzu's heart raced as he joined his master and fellow priests within the inner sanctum. Here, surrounded by stone effigies and burning incense, they began the ceremony, a plea for protection, calling upon gods ancient and powerful to shelter their city. The priests chanted in low, resonant tones, each word carefully enunciated in the ancient tongue, passed down through generations. The priesthood, keepers of Babylon's most sacred secrets, knew well the art of banishing evil spirits. Gula had taught Pazuzu about demons, the restless forces that lurked just beyond the veil of reality. But of Pazuzu, they seldom spoke. He was not merely an enemy, he was a primordial chaos, an ancient entity that could unravel minds and corrode the soul. Yet Pazuzu felt a forbidden curiosity. His hands tightened around the tablets in his satchel as his eyes flitted to the shadows beyond the temple walls, where the scent of something wild lingered, beckoning. After the ceremony, as the other priests departed, Gula turned to Pazuzu, sensing his apprentice's unease. "The creature you fear," the elder murmured, "is Pazuzu." The name felt like sand on his tongue, raw and cutting. Pazuzu swallowed, trembling. "How do we protect ourselves, master?" The elder priest's eyes glinted with wisdom and weariness. "There are secrets, but the knowledge comes at a cost. For centuries, we have guarded the rites to bind and banish such forces, yet with each invocation, we chip away at ourselves. Pazuzu's hunger is not merely for flesh, Pazuzu, but for souls." In the days that followed, whispers of a creeping plague filled the city. Foul winds swept over Babylon, carrying sickness and death. The priests worked ceaselessly, invoking protections and offering sacrifices, but nothing quelled the darkness that seeped from the west. Pazuzu could feel the tension building within him. He had studied the ancient texts, hidden away in the temple's vaults, learning of the demon's unspeakable wrath and insatiable appetite. As an apprentice, he was forbidden from accessing the deeper mysteries, yet each night, the same thoughts gnawed at him. Did they know enough to protect their city? Or was the knowledge of Pazuzu beyond their reach? One evening, as the winds howled and the air grew thick with dread, Pazuzu slipped away to a secluded corner of the temple. There, under the pale light of an oil lamp, he spread the forbidden tablets before him. Each word seemed to pulse with dark power, the incantation scrawled in ancient script whispering their secrets to him alone. They spoke of rituals that could invoke Pazuzu, binding him to the mortal realm for a time. Though dangerous, Pazuzu felt that the knowledge would allow him to confront the demon head-on. In his hubris, Pazuzu performed the rites alone, his voice rising in the darkness. The incantation echoed through the stone corridors as he called out to Pazuzu, his words tinged with defiance and fear. And then, the air grew thick and foul, and a shadow darker than any night gathered before him. A voice, deep, rumbling, ancient, spoke, sending a chill through Pazuzu's very bones. "You dare summon me, mortal?" Pazuzu fell to his knees, his defiance shattered. Pazuzu's form, indistinct yet terrible, loomed over him, a nightmarish blend of beast and shadow. His wings spread wide, casting darkness over the temple walls, while his eyes gleamed with malevolent intelligence. The days that followed Pazuzu's ill-fated encounter were filled with terror. Nightmares plagued him, visions of the demon's claws rending flesh and shadowed wings consuming the city. He watched, helpless, as Pazuzu's influence seeped deeper into Babylon, turning the people against one another in paranoid frenzy. The priests, too, felt the weight of the darkness, their minds burdened with despair. Orodgula noticed his apprentice's growing detachment, the haunted look in his eyes. "Pazuzu, there is something you are not telling me." The young priest hesitated, but the truth slipped from him, weighted by guilt. He told his master of the summoning, the shadowed encounter in the temple, and the fear that now consumed him. Orodgula's face grew pale, his anger tempered only by sorrow. "You have unleashed a force we cannot control. Pazuzu thrives on fear and despair, and now that you have opened the way, his grip tightens." Together, they sought answers in the ancient texts, calling upon every resource to find a way to bind Pazuzu once more. Yet with each ritual, each invocation, the demon grew stronger, feeding on their desperate energy. And soon, the priests began to fall ill, one by one, as the demon's curse spread like a sickness. Desperation clawed at Pazuzu. He could see no other way but to confront Pazuzu directly. With Orodgula's reluctant blessing, he prepared for a final ritual, a dangerous rite that would summon Pazuzu fully into the mortal realm, where he could be bound. It was a task fraught with peril, a gamble with his very soul. On the night of the ritual, Pazuzu and Orodgula gathered with the remaining priests, chanting in low, tremulous voices. The air thickened, the shadows deepened, and then Pazuzu appeared, a creature of nightmare, his wings spreading like a storm over the altar. His eyes glowed with hunger and amusement. "You think to bind me?" Pazuzu's laughter echoed through the chamber, a sound that sent shivers down their spines. Pazuzu stepped forward, his heart pounding. "You may walk among us now, demon, but you will be bound by the ancient words." Pazuzu's grin widened, his form shifting and darkening. He leaned close, his voice a whisper that seemed to coil around Pazuzu's mind. "You misunderstand, mortal. I do not come to be bound. I come to feed." A gust of wind howled through the temple, extinguishing the flames and casting the room into pitch darkness. Pazuzu felt the air around him grow cold as Pazuzu's presence filled the chamber, a suffocating darkness that swallowed the light. The priests cried out, their voices drowned in the demon's laughter, a sound that resonated through the city like an omen. By morning, Babylon lay shrouded in silence. Pazuzu awoke on the temple floor, the taste of dust in his mouth. Around him lay the bodies of the priests, their faces frozen in expressions of terror. Orodgula's lifeless eyes stared into the void, his hand outstretched as if to ward off some unseen horror. Pazuzu staggered to his feet, his mind a blur of images, visions of Pazuzu, his terrible wings spread over the city, devouring the souls of the living. He stumbled out into the daylight, only to find Babylon deserted, the streets empty and the doors barred. The people spoke of a curse, a shadow that had descended upon the city. They whispered of Pazuzu, the demon of the west wind, whose hunger had been awakened. And as Pazuzu wandered the empty streets, he knew that the blame lay with him, the one who had dared to summon the demon, the one who had unleashed a darkness beyond all reckoning. As he reached the city gates, he looked back at Babylon one last time, his heart heavy with regret. He could still hear Pazuzu's laughter, echoing through the silent streets, a reminder of the price of forbidden knowledge.